Hey guys, this is Keegan Russell with the KC Sports Authority podcast. Well, KU runs all over UCF, beating them 51-22 over this past weekend behind a near 400-yard rushing day by the trio of running backs we've got. JB and I are here to recap this game for you, share some of our highlights and favorite plays of the game. But first,
Hey, what's good, y'all? It's your boy JD6 here. I'm with my man. Shout out to KC Sports Authority. Make sure y'all go check that podcast out, man.
You heard the man.
of course, that is our guy, Jalen Daniels. Of course, little malfunction there. My apologies. Of course, we did not see Jalen in this game, but that was not really an issue as the Hawks still whoop up on UCF 51-22. Again, behind what was an absolute dominant rushing attack by the Hawks offensively, going
We
for
could just
nearly
get one more.
400 yards. I know, one more.
Just one more would have been great.
One more. So, JB, let's just start with this. Obviously, you and I were both at this game, and it was a great day for football. About 60 degrees outside. The sun was shining. The stadium was fairly packed for the most part. Good turnout by the fan base. KU goes up early, I think 98% full. KU jumps out to a big lead early, like 24-0 at halftime. And, it's all uphill in the first half, but kind of walk me through not just your emotions throughout the game, but just give me your overall take of how we performed going into this game. We talked that this was going to be a potential offensive shootout between two teams. And boy, that first half, we were sitting there staring at each other thinking how wrong we were.
At one point I asked you, what is my punishment for having the worst take ever on this podcast, saying that we would lose the game in our preview episode. Yeah, that game was a really fun one for the fans to go to. The atmosphere of the game I thought was great. I think everyone kind of came in ready for some football, and the players played like they were ready for some football. The players acted as if that Texas game never happened. We looked like a completely different team. And there is legitimacy to everything we said in the preview because this UCF team is explosive. But we came ready to play. We protected the home field, and we acted like it. We wouldn't let them in. I think certainly, based off of how the first half went, we would have wished maybe that we didn't give up 22 points in the second half.
Sure.
But there's some elements of guys letting off the gas there because we're up so much. So it's like it can be forgiven. That score, that final score of 51-22, that certainly looks like a blowout. It was a blowout. It felt like it could have been, 70-10. It felt like we just absolutely dominated that game, and it was a nice little rejuvenation, if you will, for the program after that Texas loss.
Yep, it was a great bounce back for sure, not only for the team as a whole, but I think for the offense and Jason Bean. We knew going into this game that Jalen was not going to be playing, and that was, of course, the case. Now, while Jason Bean himself did not have a super statistical standout game, I think you could definitely tell the comfort level of the offense was much higher this week as they get a full week of preparation together. We talked about beforehand that they were going to try and run the ball a lot with this running back group. And of course they did. And they did it super, super effectively as we had 3 running backs find the end zone. Devin Neal led the way with 12 carries for 154 yards and that one massive 75-yard touchdown to start the third quarter.
On the first play.
Coming out of halftime. That was exciting. Hishaw just kept doing his thing. You gave him the rock 19 times for 134 yards and 2 touchdowns. And, of course, those legs just keep churning and shows you why that this is one of the best duos in the country. But then being up so big late in the game, we got to see some Dylan McDuffie action too. And he also had a nice day with 13 carries for 91 yards and still 2 scores late in the game. And he himself also had a 36-yard run. So 3 running backs, 2 of them over 100, 1 with 91. All 3 had a chunk play of at least 25 yards. We finished the day with 51 carries for 399 yards and 5 TDs. averaging 7.8 yards per play. And that was really the story of the game. We'll talk about how great the defense was. Special teams had a couple big chunk plays, of course, in the massive Trevor Wilson punt return, which was super exciting and electric in the stands. But it started with this run game. We came out early, punched them in the face, ran the ball down their throat, and set the tone early. What did you see that stood out to you about this run game, and why was it so effective early on?
I think the number one thing that stood out was our guy, Neal Hishaw. I mean, my gosh, he didn't drop the ball once, did he? He has had a, nasty history sometimes of fumbles, right? He was electric. And at the end of the first quarter, that play toward our end zone, where was it? The 20, 30-yard line, somewhere around there, plows through this guy. He didn't even get the first down on that play, I don't think. We got to run the tape. We got to run the tape back. He plowed through him, and the whole crowd goes whoa at this unanimous moment. It was amazing to see that. Neal Hishaw played out of his mind. He, of course, ended the night with 2 touchdowns and 2 well-deserved touchdowns. He put the team on his back, and of course, Devin Neal, throughout the entire first half, and they quite literally carried us to the win. So it was Neal Hishaw for me, a truly breakout game in the sense of just dominance, 0 mistakes, and he didn't lead us in yards, but he didn't have to. It was tremendous, and I think if he had made a mistake, it could have been a little bit of a different game, but it wasn't. And with his dominance, we were able to contain UCF, and they had no chance.
Yeah, and on a day where KU was recognizing one of the all-time KU football legends and former running back Tony Sands, who in his final home game at Kansas runs for nearly 400 yards himself against Missouri, KU honors him in such a way to run for 399 themselves. And what just a fun first half watching us run all over again. You had the dual threat of Hishaw and Neal, and it didn't matter which one you were handing off to. They were getting chunk play after chunk play, set the momentum and the tone early in this game. We came out physical. We came out fast. We controlled the tempo the first half. We controlled the time of possession. Of course, the defense played well in the first half as well and carried a lot of that momentum over. But it's just such an impressive game offensively from the run game. The play calling was, I think, a lot better again with a whole week of preparation. There's always going to be things I'm frustrated with about Beam when it comes to decision making. But overall, he did what he was supposed to do in this game. He himself, like I said, statistically doesn't seem like he did a whole lot. He went 8 for 12 for 91 yards and a touchdown. Nothing really too fancy offensively. Luke Grimm led the way with 41 yards. Mason Fairchild, a couple catches that were big on third down. Obviously, the big offensive throw of the game was that scamper that Bean was going on where he was rolling out left, and it looked like he was tossing it away. And then sure enough, there's Luke Grimm right there on the sideline, high pointing it, dragging his toes. That was a big time play in the first half to keep the momentum. But he played for the most part mistake-free. A couple reads here that he'd probably wish he'd got back in and could do it. But it was good to see him look in rhythm and in control with a full week of preparation. And, with the unknown status of Jalen Daniels' health moving forward, it's obviously essential that Bean continues to get those reps and continues to get comfortable. End of the first half, 24-0. We're sitting there at the stadium going, wow, this is insane, sitting here as a KU football fan in a game that we were the underdogs to start with. And we're going to mention underdogs to start with, that we're sitting here 24-0 with a defensive shutout. And when I say defensive shutout, I mean, like, they didn't allow anything in the first half. Now UCF had a lot of their own issues. They were back and forth with their quarterback. John Reese Plumlee did play, but not a whole lot. So they went with Timmy McClain, but they could not move the ball offensively. A couple of us sitting there in the stands talking was reminding us of a lot of the David Beatty years for ourselves, where it was like, we can't do anything. Doesn't matter what play we do. The defense is ready for it. They just look bigger, faster, stronger than us. And that was the defense in the first half for sure. Second half,
it's great to be on the opposite end of that.
Yes,
it's
it
great to
fantastic.
finally have that for us, right?
And I think you noticed that in the stadium too, because the fans were like, "All right, this is a little different. I can dig this." And you know, students did a fairly decent job staying through most of the game. Obviously when we went up big late, a lot of the kids jumped out, but all around dominant performance. Second half we did let UCF back in the game a little bit, and I don't think anybody was really too concerned with that, just because there was, we were still up several scores, and we didn't really, we didn't push the pedal down, so to speak. But yeah, what are just some of your takeaways from this performance as a whole? What stood out to you the most moving forward? What can we take with us as we continue on? Now that we're sitting here at 5-1, with
Yeah.
one more win away from a bowl eligibility season for back-to-back seasons. But what stood out to you most outside of that run game, of course?
You know what? I think this game showed what we're capable of when we have a week to prepare with Jason Bean, knowing that he's going to be our guy. And I don't really think I'm even questioning it as far as next week goes, where I'm pretty sure we'll have Bean for next week as well. I haven't heard a thing about Jalen Daniels coming back for the Oklahoma State game in Stillwater. I don't know if I want him to come back only in the sense, don't panic, only in the sense of I want him to heal up because we'll need him for K-State. That's going to be the big one that I'm looking at. We're going to need him, of course, for Oklahoma. But the way Oklahoma took care of Texas, yikes. They might take care of us too. It doesn't matter if it's at home for us. I'm not
Yeah.
sure. We'll see.
They
We'll
had
talk
an
about that.
impressive performance against Texas, to say the least.
Yeah. But yeah, like my takeaways are we're doing just fine. We're I think we really took care of business, and I'm looking ahead at the rest of our schedule thinking there's tons and tons of potential wins here. So overall it's good. We had of course the run game worked very well. Special teams, we made our first mistake of the season, I think, our first big mistake with allowing that punt attempt to be returned for a safety, right? That was not part of the game's
On
the game
the
plan.
extra
So
point,
the
the
extra
fumble
point
there.
attempt,
Yeah.
yeah.
Thankfully, that did
Uh,
not come at a point where it was really going to be a momentum shift of any kind.
right. And
Yeah, the
and
game
it's
was
only 2
way out of
points.
hand by then. Yeah.
Right. I was watching that and I'm like, thank goodness it's only 2 points and not 6, because then it probably would have felt like a little bit of a momentum shift. But at that point, yeah, the game was already out of hand. We're gonna have these mistakes on occasion, so I'm glad that they can happen in a game where we're already destroying it.
Yeah, we don't want to see that come up later. So the fact that maybe we got this out of the way now is great. But speaking
Yeah,
of special teams, we did have some big moments in special teams. A couple, obviously the Trevor
of
Wilson
course.
punt return for a touchdown was crazy. I mean, the game was still already out of hand by then for the most part too. But that was an electric play, returning it to the house. Basically went the whole way almost untouched. That was super exciting. And then Kenny Logan almost had a kickoff return for a touchdown as well if he didn't trip over his own guy. But that's yeah. If he just get over that guy, and he was off to the races too. So almost had 2 special team touchdowns there. We controlled the game again, like I said, from a turnover battle. I thought the defensive line was quite impressive, kind of containing the pocket. Of course, late in the second half, McLean and their run game got going just a little bit. But Austin Booker, another big time play with the strip sack and the hit to recover the ball. I thought the corners played pretty solid coverage for the most part. Dotson was great in the open field space with tackling. Kobe Bryant always has lockdown defense. Kenny Logan was all over the field. The linebackers really stood out to me as well. I think this shows that we have some good depth there. Jason Gilliam got in there and got a sack in the backfield. Craig Young had that really impressive coverage play downfield that could have gone for a defensive pass interference, but he turned his head around and got his head looking at the ball. But yeah, all around, just really impressive performance. And of course, the nation thought it was impressive as well, as KU's now back in the top 25 polls again, sitting at number 24, with an opportunity to move up again with another win this week. But yeah, all around dominant performance from start to finish. You nix a couple plays here and there, a couple special team issues, a couple more defensive plays there. And this is, almost a, 51-10 type game. So a lot to be excited about, a lot to take forward. Of course, continuing with this run game, that dynamic 1-2 punch of Hishaw and Neal. They're hard to stop. And if those two guys are going, we're going to be in most every single game, even if Daniels is out. So again, all around great performance. The Hawks win 51-22 in a dominant victory at home. Now they move to 5-1 on the season, 1 game away from bowl eligibility once again, which shifts us to Oklahoma State this weekend. Oklahoma State not having one of their best seasons. It's not one of the scarier Oklahoma State teams we've played in the past. They are sitting at 3-2. They did have an impressive win over K-State this last weekend, but they've also had some ugly losses on that schedule, especially dropping that game to South Alabama. And then, of course, blowing the lead last week. But we'll get into more of that preview later on this week. So that's where the Hawks are going next, down to Oklahoma State this weekend, where they could wrap up another bowl appearance eligibility. We'll dive into that game later in the week. But JB, before we get out of here, any other final thoughts about this team from this weekend, or anything from any other games you might have caught from over the weekend? Anything?
Man, I'm feeling so excited for the program. Next week is going to be big against Oklahoma State. I'd like to remind everybody that Jason Bean beat them last year, so Jason Bean can do it again. Let's do it again. Let's get to bowl eligibility. We're 1 game away, you guys. It's going to happen. We already know it. There's plenty of other opportunities, even if we don't get past Oklahoma State. And then we got a week to prepare for Oklahoma. And hopefully Jalen Daniels is back. I'm just looking on the upside. I'm full-blown 100% optimism right now, and it's looking good for us.
Yeah, there's a very daunting Oklahoma sitting out there in front of us. But right now, KU's 2-1 in the standings. Oklahoma's leading the Big 12 at 3-0. They get a nice bye this week, and then they go take on UCF before they come to town here. So maybe UCF will bounce back and give them some fight. Like I said, we'll get into that later in the season. For now, all that matters is the Hawks' run game is going, and when they're going, KU's putting up points. So once again, 1 impressive performance this weekend. Hawks win 51-22 at home over UCF to move to 5-1 on the season, 2-1 in Big 12 play, and of course now number 24 ranked in the country. And they will head down to Stillwater this weekend to take on Oklahoma State and hopefully get to that much needed 6th victory. And again, we will preview that game coming up later this week. But for now, thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for checking our preview out from over the weekend. We got a lot of views on it. Super excited for that. We are, again, still having a lot of fun doing this. You can always find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at KCSA Pod. Check us out. Hit us up. Give us a like and a follow. Share your takes with us about this football team and where we're headed. Don't forget to check out the Aftermath podcast as well on our network. They are doing all the Chiefs coverage for us. You saw myself this last weekend on their Vikings preview. They will have their Vikings recap, of course, because now the time you see this, the Chiefs have won that game. So they will recap that game coming up. And of course, we'll talk later in the week as well about the rest of the Chiefs schedule. So give them a follow on Twitter as well at Aftermath_KC. And of course, if you're listening on Spotify, thank you. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast there. And if you're watching over here on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, share it with your friends, and we will look forward to talking to you guys in the next episode. Rock Chalk.
Rock Chalk.